Julie.
Thank you so much, Laws, for your service, and to everybody else in the background. An amazing team of people here at Powerless Penguins. And yeah, they're here Monday to Friday. 7:15, I think, is the meeting start time, and 8 o'clock on a Saturday. So if you haven't got to one of these meetings yet and you're listening to a recording, then do yourself a favour and log on. Great team of people, all about recovery, and that's exactly what we're here to talk about this morning. We're in a big book study, so if you have a big book, it would be helpful to have that in front of you. And if you haven't got one, I say this each week now, the Penguins will provide you with one. So pop your details in the chat, and they will get that sorted out for you. Before we get kicked in here, the meeting, before the meeting started, I always like to listen in to the chat that's going on, and there's a few people that logged on. It's a Saturday morning here, it's 8 o'clock, just after. A few people have logged on and said they're tired. Well, you're still here. So there's something that's getting you out of bed to do this, whatever that might be. So it's a great thing that we're all able to get together here and collaborate a little about the solution that is going to provide us with full-blown recovery. I don't get up at this time in the morning, and I don't come to meetings just to sit and, wallow in stuff. I come to carry the solution in my home group. That's what my purpose is. Once I get a sponsor and start working these steps, I'm really not a newcomer any longer. I'm here to carry the solution as to what my sponsor has given to me. And I don't come to meetings like it tells as I'm working with others. I don't come to meetings to dump my problems. I come to meetings to share the solution and how I'm working with my sponsor in order to have this spiritual awakening as the result of the steps. So where we're at in the book is at page 33. We're starting on the paragraph beginning at young people may be encouraged. So whilst you find that, I'll do a bit of a recap as to where we're at. More about alcoholism. Yes, we need to know more about alcoholism, even though we're in chapter 3. It begins on page 30 and goes right the way through to page 43. We seriously are now in the heart of the understanding the mental obsession. The mental obsession begins on 23, ends on 43. We've already talked about the physical allergy, which is the other symptom of what we have, and that was detailed right on in step 1 in the doctor's opinion. We are still in step 1, and we will be in step 1 continuously until we get to page 45. So we've still got a lot to learn about how we have to let the idea in that we're powerless over alcohol, that we have no power, we've got no choice, we've got no control, and that our lives have become unmanageable. So, let's get stuck into learning more about what this mental obsession is. By definition, the mental obsession is this preoccupation with this totally and utterly unreasonable idea that we can use or pick up one drink, use on one occasion. That's the crux of the problem, and they go on to talk about it as we go through the next lot of steps, or the next lot of pages, sorry. In this chapter, I know I've talked about this over the last couple of weeks, there's 4 beautiful stories within this chapter that give you 4 different examples of an alcoholic. As we're going through this, as we are still in step 1, we're asking ourselves, is this me? Is this me? Is this me? Did I drink like that? Did I think like that? Did I feel like that? When we're going through all of this step 1, for you to be able to tune into the fact that, do you know what? I'm ready to admit here, based on the information that is being provided to me in this book, not everything that everybody in the rooms is telling me, but everything that my sponsor is bringing me through, I can safely say and admit to myself that, my experience would suggest that I'm powerless, I have no choice, and I have no control. So there's 4 stories within here. We covered one last week. I call it the guy with the carpet slippers. He was the guy that gave up alcohol for 25 years, had this silly idea that even after all of that time that he could pick up one drink, and so he did, and within 4 years he was dead. Because the progression of our illness is still continuing. If we relapse, we stop where we start where we stopped. We don't go right back to the beginning of our drinking career. So it's on this progressive trajectory. We also have 3 little, I call them little tests, but they're not really tests. That's not the correct word, but it's the only word that's coming to my mind at this moment in time. But we've already covered 2 of them. First of all, try to drink like a gentleman. Well, if you've tried to drink like a gentleman and it hasn't worked, well, that little test has failed. The next little test was try stepping over to the nearest bar room and try some controlled drinking. And if you're honest with yourself, that probably hasn't worked either. Now, obviously, I am not advocating for anybody to step over to the nearest bar room and try to do some controlled drinking. The bottom of page 31, that is the context of which that is written in the book is so incredibly important. We should never advise anybody to step over to the nearest bar room and try some controlled drinking. That's not the point of that line in the book. Your sponsor will explain to you, or you will have heard it in the previous recording. And if anybody doesn't understand the context of it, phone me, call me, I'll give you the context of it. And we're going to go into another one of the stories, all being well, this morning, and we're going to go into another one of those little tests. Again, the word test is not the right thing for me. I'll think about it as we go through, if something else comes along. But I cannot emphasize enough that line at the bottom of page 31. The other line at the bottom of page 31 that I can't emphasize enough is that as a sponsor, I can't diagnose any of my sponsees as alcoholic. They have to diagnose themselves as an alcoholic. And how do they do that? Well, they work with me as their sponsor, and they go through the steps. And they diagnose themselves based on the evidence that's presented in the book. And the big book is the only place that you'll find the program of recovery. And the clear-cut directions that are set out in mastery detail. So, like they say at the bingo, eyes down, look in. Apparently, I've said this before, I've never been to bingo. Apparently that's what they say. You see, this is what would have happened to me in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I would have listened to lines like that and used lines like that and not actually knew the context of which they were in. So I've never been to the bingo, but I act as if I know about it. And in the rooms, I used to act as if I knew about this stuff, but I had actually no context from which it was written until I got a sponsor. There's lots of things that are thrown about in the rooms that are little cliches or little acronyms that we think are trying to make things easier for the newcomer. In actual fact, it's making it a little bit more complicated. And as we're going through this book study, I'll point some of those things out to you as well. So like that step over to the nearest bar room, people think that's an instruction. No, it's not. Necessarily. It's not. There are times when things like that happen, but again, your sponsor will guide you through that. So young people may be encouraged by this man's experience to think that they can stop as he did on their own willpower. So if you're sitting in this room now and you're young, whatever young is, I still consider myself young and I'm more than middle-aged. But anyway, that's an aside. But if you think that you're sitting in this room and you can try to do this, control this and have your own willpower and you have your own choice over that, well, I'm afraid to say that you're very much mistaken. You cannot do this by yourself. So the story that they're referring to is the guy that tried to give it up for 25 years and picked up and was dead within 4. So he was an example, a real example of how no matter how far away you are, no matter the years, if you haven't had a spiritual awakening as the result of the steps, at some point this obsession could return. So these young people that they're talking about, we doubt if many of them can do it. on their own willpower, because none will really want to stop, and hardly one of them, because of the peculiar mental twist already acquired, will find he can win out. So remember, we're talking about the mental obsession here, the peculiar mental twist that they've already acquired. That being that, do you know what, I'm too young. I'll try and give it up for a wee bit of time because I'm only 25. If I give it up for the next year or so, then surely I'll be able to get it under control. Or do you know what? I'll stop after my 30th birthday and I'll try and control it then. I'll do all of the celebrations at that time and then I'll give it up for a period. The previous paragraph talks about that no kind of reservation or this lurking notion. I have sponsored many, many, many people who have had this lurking notion that they're going to be okay. So I've been in the fellowship, I've been with my sponsor a few months, you know, the using and the drink thing seems to have stopped. So do you know what? I'm just going to leave it for now. And they come to their meetings. But there's always that lurking notion, that peculiar mental twist that's already there, that they won't be able to win out. Because that peculiar mental twist will arise very, very, very quickly, which will result in someone picking up and using again. We start to learn later on in this chapter that we've got no mental defense against the first drink. And the solution that we have through this program of recovery, through this program of action, ensures that we receive and get a mental defense against the first drink. That's what we're looking at here. That's what we're working towards. But right now, if you're sitting in this room or listening to this, and you haven't got a sponsor and you're not working a program and you're just going to the meetings, you know, the mental peculiar twist will arise because you can't defend it by yourself. No one of us can. Not one of us can. That's what these stories are telling us. Several of our crowd, many of 30 or less, and it doesn't matter the age. Set aside every single thing you think you know about the age in order to have a new experience with God. Don't let anything get in your way. Don't let any little barrier or excuse that you make up in your mind. That's not me because. No, set it all aside to have the new experience with God. A God that you probably don't even understand yet. A God that you probably haven't even thought of yet, but set it aside anyway. So several of our crowd, men of 30 or less, had been drinking only a few years, but they found themselves as helpless as those who had been drinking 20 years. The point that they're making here, using here, you know, is the fact that it doesn't matter how long you drank. It doesn't matter what you drank. It doesn't matter what you used. It doesn't matter how often you used it. It doesn't matter when you started. It doesn't matter when your intention to stop has started. None of that is relevant. How long you drank, what you drank, where you drank, who you drank with, who you used with, what you used, none of it is relevant. Because if you have the physical allergy, which manifests itself in the phenomenon of craving, and you've got no mental defense against the first, you're going to pick up anyway. Look at the diversity in this room. Look at the wide range of people in this room. Like it says on page 17, we are normally people that would not mix. But there's a huge diversity within this room this morning. But you're the same as everyone else. Do not be fooled. Do not be fooled. Do not let that mind of yours, that little trickster that is your ego, tell you that you are different, because you're not. You're not here to look at why you're different. You're here to look at why what one might be saying applies to you. I hope that makes sense. So they then go on to say, to be gravely affected Little death threat there, people. To be gravely affected. In the foreword to the second edition, they use that word as well. The grave nature of alcoholism. So to be gravely affected, one does not necessarily have to drink a long time or take the quantity some of us have. That was the point that I was making earlier. That's irrelevant. Doesn't matter. You don't have to cross a certain line and then it happens. Oh yeah, now you're qualified to be an alcoholic. Now you're qualified to be an addict. And I'll come back to that in a moment. And for us ladies, or for those who identify as ladies, this is particularly true of women. Potential female alcoholics often turn into the real thing and are gone beyond recall in a few years. Yeah. The reason why they're pointing this out in the book at this time is because back in the day when the book was written, when the book was printed, there was very few women in Alcoholics Anonymous. So what they were bringing to life here is, people, it's okay for women to be alcoholics too. The majority of people sitting in the rooms back in the day when the book was written were middle class, white American. So they're opening up the perspective here that this happens to women too. There's a personal story at the back of the book about that makes me smile. And a lot of men who I take through the book identify with the woman's story. Well, of course they do, because it doesn't matter what your gender is or how you identify. It's whether you have the physical allergy or the mental obsession. It's the symptoms that matter, not anything else. So, certain drinkers who would be greatly insulted if called alcoholics are astonished at their inability to stop. If anybody said, Mags, do you know what, or questioned my drinking or using, you know what, Mags, do you want to lay off that a wee bit? Or Mags, do you think you've had enough? Mags, maybe you're going out too much. Mags, maybe. No, don't dare ever talk to me about my drinking. Don't dare, because you're the one that has the problem, not me. And I'd never be in your company again. And then that line from page 17 jumps back out again. We're normally people that would not mix. In the end, I would not mix with anybody because you weren't keeping up with the rate that I needed you to keep up with my drinking and using. Therefore, I separated myself and became the lone wolf so that I could do more of the same, because I was so affected by the allergy. I was so affected by the mental obsession. I could not stop. But if anybody raised the fact that they thought that I had a problem with alcohol, done. Relationship ended, friendship over, nowhere to be seen again. And I hasten to add all of those people were added to my amends list. So you never get away from it. You'll always have to return to these people in the most beautiful way to be able to connect again and amend that relationship from my behaviour that I undertook during my drinking and using. So you may think that it's a good thing that you're by yourself and you're able to do all of this stuff, but really it's going to come back anyway, because you're going to have to smooth those things over in a way that is going to change your life anyway. So we who are familiar with the symptoms, I cannot emphasize enough, familiar with the symptoms. You've heard me say this before. The symptoms are not the isms. The symptoms are not the I, the self, the me. That does not help the newcomer. The symptoms are specifically the physical allergy, the mental obsession. That's what we're talking about in step one. The I, the self, the me, and all of that, that comes later on. And even using that little acronym doesn't help anybody. It doesn't give the context from the program of action and the program of recovery. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So we who are familiar with the symptoms see large number of potential alcoholics among young people everywhere, but try and get them to see it. They've got this lurking notion. They've got this peculiar mental twist. They don't want to see it. Not just young people. In general, people will have this peculiar mental twist and lurking notion. And the thing about it is, it doesn't matter what age you are. We've said all of this already. It doesn't matter what your gender is. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter how much you drank and used and when you started, etc., etc. back on page 22, we understand that there will never be a full answer to any of the questions. We cannot answer the riddle. There's nothing to work out about why. What the program and what the book and your sponsor enables you to do is understand if this is you. You don't need to work out the reasons why you're an alcoholic addict. You don't need to work out the reasons why you used or drank. The reason why it has happened is because you have the physical allergy and the mental obsession. And once you admit that, once you let that idea in, it opens up a whole wonderful, beautiful way of understanding more about the solution and how you can recover from this hopeless state of mind and body that they outline on page 20. That's why we're here, people. I say to sponsees all the time, there's nothing to work out here. Really, in its most simplest terms, there isn't anything to work out. Just keep showing up. Keep on turning the pages. Keep on having faith in the process. That being going through the book with your sponsor. At this stage, that's all we have to have faith in. And now we go into this third little example in this paragraph. As we look back, we feel we'd gone on drinking many years beyond the point where we could quit on our willpower. If anyone questions whether he has entered this dangerous area, let him try leaving liquor alone for 1 year. How many of us have tried to leave it alone for a year? 11 months, 10 months, 9 months, work your way back, doesn't matter. How many of us in the room have tried to leave it alone? Because here's the thing, if he is a real alcoholic, i.e. the one that is set out on page 21, the real alcoholic who at some point in their drinking career has lost all control. So if he is a real alcoholic and very far advanced, there's scant chance of success of doing this by yourself, on your willpower, on your own. In the early days of our drinking, we occasionally remain sober for a year or more, becoming serious drinkers again later. I was never able to leave it alone. I was one of those that just couldn't possibly leave it alone. I had so much willpower in every respect in my life, but when it came to this, all bets were off. There was nothing that I could do by myself that was going to rectify this problem for me. And though you may be able to stop for a considerable period, you may yet be a potential alcoholic. Here's the thing though, we think few to whom this book will appeal, if you're being honest with yourself, if you're setting aside every single thing you think you know about the circumstances that you are in, can stay dry anything like a year. Is this you? Some will be drunk the day after making their resolutions, most of them within a few weeks. So I'll get to this point in the book with sponsees. They'll have had a couple of weeks, they've had a couple of months, they've been trying to do it by themselves for a year. They then realize there's something else happening because whilst they're not drinking, they might still be thinking about drinking. The mental obsession is still there. It's causing them some discomfort. It's causing them some angst. They then come back to their meetings. They're then thinking, oh my God, I may do what to get this sponsor thing sorted out. They do a couple of weeks, months with me or whatever, and then they think again, do you know what, I'm just going to leave it be. I'm still doing okay. It's all right. Whether they're put off by the work, whether they're put off by the action, it doesn't matter. But let me tell you this, inevitably meaning almost always, I will receive a call from those individuals at some point down the line saying, I can't do this by myself. That's the reality of what we're dealing with. Like everything that's set out in this book is true bill. It's true bill. And excuse the pun, I'm not talking about Bill W. It is true bill W, but it's true bill like this is on the bill. This is what happens. If you want to find out the truth of what we suffer from, and you want to find out the truth of how you overcome it, the big book is the only place you're going to find it. It's as simple as that. See everything else that you're trying? Happy days. It might give you a foundation, but it won't give you the solution in totality for full-blown recovery. If you're coming to the fellowship and you're trying just to get a little bit of relief, that might not even happen either without a program. And do you want to live a life of just having a relief from alcohol? Just a wee bit of relief. Just give me a few days. If I could just get relief for a month, I'll be all right. You'll never be relieved. You'll never be at peace. What we have here is full-blown recovery. That's where it's at. That's where the peace comes. That's where the happiness comes. That's where the ability to help others comes. Because that's what our purpose is. To help others overcome this. And if you think you're sitting in this room for any other reason, get a sponsor. Because they're going to show you why you're here. You know, I come and do service because I'm an alcoholic addict. I don't come to do service because you are. This is the prescription that I take for my progressive illness. But in being of service and giving it away, it's a win-win situation because we can help each other overcome this. But I have to take my prescription for the rest of my life. Like we talked about in the spiritual experience a few weeks ago. The willingness, the honesty, the open-mindedness, the indispensable, essential requirements continue for our lifetime. I keep on giving this away to get more back. So that I can keep giving it away to get more back. It's just a beautiful circle of life. That's what this is all about. So there you go. You've got your 3 little guides, tests, whatever you want to call them. Have you tried drinking like a gentleman? Have you tried stepping over to the nearest barroom? Have you tried leaving it alone for a year? I tried all of them. None of them worked. Therefore, there's probably a likelihood that I'm an alcoholic. But here's the thing. This paragraph on page 34 is so incredibly important. This is where you get the definition of addiction. This is where you start to understand you've got no power. You've got no control. And you have got definitely no choice. And it's all 3. So for those who are unable to drink moderately, the question is how to stop all together. Quit entirely. You're not coming into this fellowship to control your drinking. And if you are, and you're one of us, yeah. How's that going for you? Is what my sponsor used to say to me. Well, how's that going for you? You're coming in to try and control your drinking. How's that going for you? My answer inevitably was always not very well. It was a bit of a rhetorical question because he knew the answer. He didn't need me to tell him. So how to stop all together? Relapse doesn't have to be part of our recovery. Relapse does not have to be part of our recovery. Relapse for me was a lack of recovery. And that's a big statement. But relapse does not have to be part of it. Because here's the thing, we're assuming, of course, that the reader desires to stop. I would circle that word, just to emphasize some things here in this paragraph. We're assuming, of course, that the reader desires to stop. And whether such a person can quit upon a non-spiritual basis depends upon the extent to which he has already lost the power to choose, the power of choice, whether he will drink or not. Many of us felt that we had plenty of character. Of course we did. Really great character. Really strong willpower in many respects, in every respect of our life. But why can't we get control of this stuff? There was a tremendous urge another important word, to cease forever. There's a consistency in this paragraph. This is about stopping altogether. This is about ceasing forever. This is about a permanent solution to the trouble that you're having right now with addiction and using an alcohol. Yet we found it impossible to do this by ourselves. And it is impossible to do it by yourself. Because here's the thing. This is the baffling feature of alcoholism as we know it. Get this line, people. This utter inability to leave it alone. No matter how great the necessity, another important word, or the wish. The one consistent thing about us, if you're an alcoholic, if you are an addict, the baffling feature of our addiction is for the rest of your life, you have the utter inability to leave it alone. For the rest of your life. Carpet slippers man, 25 years. Young person, stopping at 25. See, when you come down the line at 65, you still have the utter inability to leave it alone. And these words are important. No matter how much you desire, you have the urge, you have the necessity, or you have the wish, you cannot do it by yourself. You've got no mental defense against the first drink. And it's all four of those. You may be about to lose your job. You may be allowed to use your family. You might be about to lose your license. You might be about to lose your home. Whatever it is that is happening, no matter how great the necessity it is for you to give this up, you cannot do it by yourself. You've got the utter inability to leave it alone for the rest of your life. I can't emphasize that enough, and nor can the people that wrote this book. And if there's one thing that I never, ever, 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 ever forget that my sponsor taught me over and over and over again, Max, you've got the utter inability to leave it alone, no matter what. So if I have the utter inability to leave it alone, and I can't do this by myself, well, what have I got to do? They give us the answer in the next paragraph. This is how simple, this is how clear-cut this program is. In the next few paragraphs, they're going to start to tell you what you got to do. And they're going to go into another one of these beautiful stories. So how then shall we tell our readers? How then should we help our readers determine to their own satisfaction whether they are one of us? Not to my satisfaction, not to everybody else's in the room's satisfaction, because you have to diagnose yourself, as it says at the bottom of page 31, that you are one of us. And how do you do that? By working through the book with the sponsor. To your own satisfaction that you've got this physical allergy and this mental obsession. Because here's the thing, and this is what you might be doing right now. The experiment of quitting for a period of time will be helpful. But, like it says on page 32, it might be helpful if you're honest with yourself. But if you haven't even got the ability to be honest about yourself with your drinking and all of that, then you're on the road to no time. That's why you can't do this by yourself. You need somebody to point this stuff out to you. Because your mind will trick you into anything to tell you you don't have this. This is why we set aside every single thing we think we know to have this new experience with God. Because we see things from an entirely different angle. But we think we can render an even greater service to alcoholic sufferers and perhaps to the medical fraternity. Even the people that can't help us will get benefit from reading this book and understanding us lot. So here's the thing. So we shall describe some of the mental states that precede a relapse into drinking, using. For obviously, this is the crux of the problem. It's not when you pour the glass of wine. It's not when you pick up. It's not when you're in a state of drunkenness. It's not in the state of the hangover. It's not whilst you're drinking and using. Your problem is the preceding things. Your thoughts. The mental state that you're in before you pick up. It's not during, it's not after, it's what happens before. Because if you didn't pick up, you wouldn't be in the state that you're in. And if you're not picking up and you've been off it for a period of time, like the year, like the 6 months, like the 90, people on the meeting were talking about they were at meetings, 90 meetings in 90 days. I don't know what that is. My sponsor didn't ever tell me that. That's not an instruction from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It is something that has come from the courts in America to do 90 meetings in 90 days so that you can get your court card marked and go back to the judge and have it stamped. If that's what you're doing, fair enough. Happy days, do what your instructions are telling you to do. But the few simple rules that are set out in Alcoholics Anonymous is admit that you're powerless. Admit that you're powerless. Admit that you're hopeless. Get a sponsor and work the steps. A few simple rules, that's it. Meetings are an essential part, absolutely, not by themselves. If you're going to 90 meetings in 90 days and haven't got a sponsor, then get one. If you're going to 90 meetings in 90 days and haven't got a sponsor and you're not working the steps, get one and start working the steps, because that's the solution. Because right now, if you're going to 90 meetings in 90 days and you still have the mental obsession, you have no mental defense against the first drink, you need somebody to work with you to help you understand this so that you can overcome it. It's the mental twist that precedes. So important for the newcomer to understand that. So important for me to understand that still. And I've been off it, doesn't matter, a number of years. But it's important for me to understand that I still have the utter inability to leave it alone. It goes on to emphasize what sort of thinking. Mental obsession. This is all about our thinking, people. This is all about our thinking. This program enables us to rewire our brains. What sort of thinking dominates an alcoholic who repeats time after time the desperate experiment of the first drink? I'll just have the one. It kind of worked the last time, when in actual fact it didn't. Friends who have reasoned with him after a spree, which has brought him to the point of divorce or bankruptcy, are mystified when he walks directly into a saloon. Why does he? Of what is he thinking? The mental twist, the peculiar mental twist, the lurking notion, the reservation that they can pick up one more time. It's serious, isn't it? Like, this illness centers in our mind. It tells us that. It centers in our mind. And by myself, I cannot work this out. And please know, my reference to the 90 meetings in 90 days is not a judgment and it's not an opinion. If that is working for you, knock yourself out. If that is working for you and that's what your sponsor's telling you to do, knock yourself out. But I have to be true to the truest form of what is in the big book. I have to be. I cannot dilute the message. I had to go to rehab for over 90 days to give myself a breath so I understand. I had to go for over 90 days to be taken away from this and be locked up, to be taken away because my mental obsession was so incredible, it nearly killed me. So please know, I love everybody dearly. I'm here to help as much as I possibly can. I place no judgment. So here we go. Our first example. This is the mental obsession that precedes the first drink. This is our first example that they're going to talk about here, right? This is the second story within the book. The carpet slippers man within the chapter. Carpet slippers man is number one. Our first example is a friend we shall call Jim. I call him the milkman. If you haven't heard this story before, it'll all become apparent. So Jim, the milkman. Is this you? He's just a lovely little man, this guy. This man has a charming wife and family. He inherited a lucrative automobile agency. He had a commendable World War record. He is a good salesman. Everybody likes him. He is an intelligent man, normal so far as we can see, except for a nervous disposition. He did no drinking until he was 35. Late starter, some may say. In a few years, he became so violent when intoxicated that he had to be committed, and on leaving the asylum, he came into contact with one of us. So when I say, is this you? Is this you? Lovely person, got a good job, people like you, intelligent and all of that. Of course it is. That's all of us in this room. Of course it is. Do you have a nervous disposition? I did. You might not. But this little nervous disposition that he might have as well might be connected to something else. Okay, maybe a little bit jittery in the mornings. I don't know. So here's the thing. This paragraph is really, really key. So he came into contact with one of us. He came into contact with a person who has had a spiritual awakening as the result of the steps. He came into contact with somebody who does this work. Yeah, who has recovered. Number one, we told him what we knew of alcoholism. So when I meet a newcomer, I tell them what we knew about alcoholism, how I'm powerless, physically, mentally, how my life became unmanageable. That's it. Number two, the answer we had found. How I've come to believe in this power greater than myself. Step two, in very simple terms. And number three, he made a beginning. Happy days. He made a beginning. So he's working his way through the steps with the sponsor here. So he's understanding step one. He's understanding he's powerless, mental obsession, physical allergy. He's understanding that he can't do it by himself. He's understanding that he had to find a power that is greater than himself in step two. He made the beginning. He's worked his way through the steps. And as a result of that, his family was reassembled and he began to work as a salesman for the business he had lost through drinking. But at least he has a job. All went well for a time. But he failed to enlarge his spiritual life. So what they're saying here, so what they're saying here is, to his consternation, he found himself drunk half a dozen times in rapid succession. So he failed to enlarge his spiritual life. And as a result of failing to enlarge his spiritual life, he got drunk again. So if you all turn back to page 14, the bottom of page 14, it tells us what enlarging our spiritual life actually is. The very bottom paragraph, very bottom line. For if an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice with others, he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. If he did not work, i.e. work with others, faith without works is dead, he would surely drink again. And if he drank, he would surely die. Then faith would be dead indeed. With us, it's just like that, people. It's just like that. So basically what our Jim the Milkman did, God bless him, he worked hard all the way up to step 11, had a ball. He was off the drink for all of that period of time, but he did not do step 12. He failed to enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice with other people. He had an 11-step self-help program, not a 12-step recovery program. There is a big difference. This is a 12-step recovery program, not an 11-step self-help program. Here's the thing about him. On each of these occasions, we work with him, reviewing carefully what had happened. He agreed he was a real alcoholic and in serious condition. So the point of this little story is he agreed he was powerless. He agreed and understood step one, the allergy, the mental obsession, and his life is unmanageable. He agreed he was a real alcoholic. But because he didn't do everything that he needed to do, he found himself, he knew he faced another trip to the asylum if he kept on. Moreover, he would lose his family, for whom he had a deep affection. He knew he was a real alcoholic, but still, because he didn't fulfill and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice, if you turn the page, this is what happened. Yet, he got drunk again. We asked him to tell us exactly how it happened. Here's his story. I came to work on Tuesday morning. Many would say he didn't turn up on Monday because he was hungover. Number one, didn't come to work till Tuesday morning. Number two, I remember I felt irritated that I had to be a salesman for a concern I once owned. A little bit of resentment going on there. Number three, had a few words with the boss, but nothing serious. Oh, big deal. Wasn't really anything serious. Just had to go with my boss. Another little bit of resentment there. Building. This guy knows he's an alcoholic. This guy has a sponsor. At this point, he should be talking to somebody. You know, if I've harmed someone, pick up the phone and speak to somebody, try to sort it out. Oh, but no, do you know what? I'm not going to do that. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to jump in my car. Number four, decided to drive to the country and see one of my prospects for a car. Number five, on the way, I felt hungry. So I stopped at a roadside place where they have a bar. I had no intention of drinking. No, but I'm just going to go into this bar. No intention. The lurking notion. Wee bit of a reservation here. Lurking notion. I just thought, we thought, I'd get a sandwich. Yeah, why not? Get a sandwich, you're hungry. You're filled with resentments. You've just driven to another part of the country because you don't want to face anybody. You've not thought of picking up the phone and talking to your sponsor. You know you're a real alcoholic. You're not taking any of the action that you know that you should be. But sure, let's see where that gets you. Like my sponsor says, how'd that go for you? I also had the notion, there you go, filled with notions that I might find a customer for a car at this place, which was familiar because I had been going to it for years. I'd eaten there many times during the months I was sober. I sat down at the table and ordered a sandwich and a glass of milk. This is why I call him the milkman. Still no thought of drinking. Still no thought. Mental obsession. No thought of drinking. I ordered a sandwich and decided to have another glass of milk. God, he's doing very well here, isn't he? Still hasn't spoken to anybody. Trying to work this all out for himself. And here's the thing. Italics. Important. Suddenly, boom, out of nowhere, suddenly, like lightning, just the thought crossed my mind that if I were to put an ounce of whiskey in my milk, it couldn't hurt me on a full stomach. I'll have this wee glass of wine because, you know what, I've had my dinner. Picking up one drink here is not going to be a problem because all of the burgers and chips and the desserts and everything else that I've ate will absorb the alcohol. So that first drink's not going to work. It's not going to have any effect on me. Knock yourself out, Max. 4 burgers in a row and 15 packets of chips. No, the first drink's not going to affect you. Max, seriously, jog on. The serious mental peculiar twist that precedes the first drink. I've got the utter inability to leave it alone. 14 hamburgers isn't going to stop the allergy from being kicked off. I ordered a whiskey and poured it into the milk. I vaguely sensed I was being any too smart, but felt reassured I was taking the whiskey on a full stomach. The experiment went so well that I ordered another whiskey and poured it into more milk. Less whiskey, more milk. Sure, that'll not set off the allergy either. Give me a break. They didn't seem to bother, so I tried another. Go on, try another, because what has happened in just taking that first little whiskey with milk, you've set off the phenomenon of craving. You need that sense of ease and comfort, so you just get another and another and another and another and another, and so boom, off you go again. And this is Bill, this is Jim. Thus started one more journey to the asylum for Jim. Here was the threat of commitment, the loss of family and position, to say nothing of the intense mental and physical suffering which drinking always caused him. He put in one, set off the phenomenon of craving, boom. Because here's the thing. He admitted he was a real alcoholic. The italics here are important. He had much knowledge about himself as an alcoholic. I know there's people in this room that have relapsed recently. And I know these people in this room have a lot of knowledge about what they're talking about in the big book. I know these people have been to meetings over and over and over again. I know these people have swapped from sponsor to sponsor to sponsor to sponsor. The thing about it is that's grand. That's grand. But the reality of it is you might have much knowledge about yourself as an alcoholic. You might have much knowledge about this program, but there's something that you're not setting aside about what you think you know, about what's going to keep you sober in order to have this new experience with God, which is the only thing that's going to. Set aside every single thing you think you know because it's not working for you. Yet all the reasons for drinking were easily pushed aside in favour of the foolish idea that he could take whiskey if only he mixed it with milk. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. And I'm going to finish on this paragraph because it's a brilliant one to really sit and ponder over the next week. So he's going to pour the whiskey into milk. It's going to be okay. You can have a glass of wine, or you can use or get the hit or whatever, because it won't harm me. Whatever the precise definition of the word may be, if you're thinking like that, we call this plain insanity. How can such a lack of proportion of the ability to think straight be called anything else? If you're here and you've tried again and again and again by yourself with no power, no control, no choice, and you think it's okay to pick up again, it is insane. Insanity. Get a sponsor. Work the steps. And I'm telling you, your sanity will return. It's a cast iron guarantee. If you do the work, it works. If you don't, it won't. Don't be a Jim. Don't be a milkman. Don't be a Jim. We've got the solution in this room. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.